I'm like, all right, you know what? We deserve better than that. And other developers deserve better than that. We can build this product and we can do it better and we can give better customer service than that. Like, it felt like a low bar. It really.
Hello, welcome to devtools-fm. This is a podcast about developer tools and the people who make them. I'm Andrew, and this is my co-host, Justin.
Hey, everyone. We're really excited to have Ben Curtis on with us today. So Ben, you are one of the co-founders of Honeybadger, and you launched RailsKit, and you've just done a lot of stuff, and we're excited to chat about all you've been working on. But before we dive into it, why don't you give us a little bit more background on yourself?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I do a lot of stuff. I don't need a whole lot of sleep. Apparently, that's one of my gifts or curses, depending on how you look at it. So I love to play with tech. Ever since I was I don't know, about 8 years old or so, got my hands on a TRS 80, and copied the programs out of the little magazines that we got. Been doing that ever since then. Grew up with the BBS scene and Turbo Pascal and all that stuff. And I've just always loved playing with computers and making them do things. So those are the kind of projects that I'd love to do.
Yeah, you've been here since the start. You've seen the full spectrum of what web is, at least the World Wide Web. What got you into web? Since you were a kid, you kind of had the world was your oyster and you chose web. And then how did that lead to Ruby?
Yeah, so pre-web, I was actually pretty interested in MUDs and moves. I don't know if you ever did that back in the day, but back when there was IRC and Usenet and the dinosaurs roamed the earth, there was also this little thing called a MUD or a moo or a mush, depending on your flavor. And you could telnet into a machine and you could have a chat with people. And there would be some that were just about chats and there'd be different rooms. And there were some that were actually about games, like picture Zork, right? But multiplayer, basically, over Telnet, where you go from room to room and you might build things. And there was some crazy stuff happening. Anyway, I wanted to build one of those. And so I got into C and the Unix world. And that was really how I got started on collaborative spaces and interactivity and that sort of thing. And that's about the time that Gopher was the highlight of how you would get data on the internet, right? It was all still kind of a bunch of research guys, universities doing stuff, and WAIS, the Wide Area Information System, I think is what it was. Those were high tech and super happening before the whole World Wide Web launched. And I remember vividly, the day I walked into the computer lab and I saw the Cello web browser running on Windows 3.1, and I saw a website that had an image in it for the first time. And I was like, oh man, there goes all of our bandwidth, right? Because I was used to all text and blah, blah, blah. So going back to that is I've just got addicted, I guess, to being online, like a lot of us have, maybe just a little bit earlier than some, and just haven't gotten away since then.
That's awesome. So yeah, let's talk a little bit more about your involvement with Rails. So I know especially for a lot of folks who were doing web development around 99, 2000, in some of the early days and moving on, it's when Rails hit the scene, it was huge. It was a big deal because frameworks before it were not as nice, not as ergonomic to work with necessarily, not always. There were some good ones, but so tell us about that. How did you get involved with Rails? How did you discover it? What was that experience like?
Yeah. Like you said, 99, 2000, the web scene was really heating up. There was, businesses launching on the web for the first time. And, back in those days, I was doing Perl and PHP, and Perl had some interesting web stuff, but it felt like it didn't really fit all that great. And so when PHP came out, especially version 2, I was all over that. It's oh yeah, a language purpose built for the web. This makes total sense to me. And I just dove in. And then, like you said, yeah, there were some frameworks and there were some patterns that were starting to develop around that time, but it was pretty rough. And a lot of times, you built your own stuff, right? By the time I was done writing PHP, I had my own database abstraction layer. I had my own view template layer and had to come up with my own patterns. And that was the thing that really appealed to me about Rails when I first saw it. It's all the patterns that we've learned over the past several years are just baked in to the framework. And I guess it's, no accident that DHH was also a PHP developer, had the same kind of background happening. And so they just kind of clicked in my brain. It's like, yes, we've got routes, we've got database. Well, I mean, the first launch of Rails, we didn't have routes, but that's pre 1.0. No one remembers that anymore. But like, yeah, these things like how we learned how to do in the PHP community became just baked in. And so it was actually particularly funny, like later on when Laravel popped up, like taking a lot of inspiration from Rails, it kind of came full circle, right? Bringing all that stuff back to the PHP community. So that's great. But yeah, like 2005, I think, is when I first learned about Rails on Slashdot and saw that 15-minute video that DHH put out. Started diving into it, and little known fact, I'm actually one of the recipients of Dave's like early on incendiary posts, like where he was always, because his marketing strategy was basically like attack anyone that attacks me, that doesn't love Rails. And me being a PHP guy, I was like, well, Rails looks cool, but it's got these things, and I'm not sure, and it's kind of early on, and I got both barrels from Dave. But it was awesome. It was fun. So I went and chatted with him at a conference later. I'm like, hey, remember me? He's like, he didn't remember me, of course, but it was great. It was good fun. And, it didn't take me long to really become convinced, converted, or whatever word you want to use. I remember I was at a job where I was doing a lot of PHP and Perl. And I knew that the job wasn't going to change. Like, we had a big platform. We weren't going to just bring in something brand new. And so I'm like, well, time to find a new job. So I did, so I could do Rails.
And a lot of Rails you did. So one of the first things I want to talk about is you kind of got into the selling software business quite early with your Rails kit, which was like a purchasable starter code for Rails. What did that experience kind of like teach you about selling software?
Well, it taught me a couple things. A lot of people had a lot of negative issues with the idea of selling software. And, I guess to be expected, this Rails was open source, Linux was open source, Apache, all the things that we were building on was all open source, right? And so the idea that you would have to actually pay for some software was pretty repugnant to some. But at the same time, I also learned that, there are a surprising number of people who understand the value of software and the time savings that it can be in your life and how that's worth actual cash, and they're willing to pay. So many times I'd be at a conference and I'd be talking to somebody and they're like, oh, I can't imagine you have any success with that, blah, blah, blah. Like, no one's going to pay for software. And I'm like, well, actually, if you looked at my revenue, you would see that there are plenty of people paying for software. So yeah, it was kind of an early indication really like, hey, like, don't always believe what the zeitgeist is or whatever, everyone knows to be gospel. It's like, if you think you can do something, go give it a shot. And who knows, you might actually find that this is different.
Yeah, makes total sense. I mean, I think even like Laravel community tailwind, like a bunch of these, there have been a long tail of communities that are like, if you can take some expertise and taste and skill and pre-package together like tools and frameworks in a way that folks don't have to just mess with them and they can just get to the thing that they want to do, people will pay for it. At least historically, the new age is interesting, and maybe we can talk about that a little later on.
Definitely talk about that, yeah.
Before we get that far, one interesting thing when we were doing research on you is, so you had actually written the original like Rails plugin directory before gems were like a thing. How did that happen? How did that come about?
Yeah, so got into Rails, and like plugins were the way that you distributed some ready-made package for Rails, right? We didn't have gems as bundler, didn't have that. So if you built something that you wanted to share, it was going to be a plugin. And the way that it was originally shared, like we didn't have GitHub then either. So there was actually a wiki. So the Ruby on Rails site was basically a wiki, and there was a page or pages for plugins. So if you had your acts as list plugin, or there's a few others like that, you would list it on the wiki page. And pretty soon it became apparent that it was just not scalable, right? 20, 30, sure, but 100 plugins, now you can't find anything, right? You couldn't really search for it. So I was like, well, this would be a great project to do. And so I was still early days of Rails, still learning about Rails. I'm like, I was always looking for projects to build. And so this was a great one. So yeah, I thought, hey, we could use a plugin directory. So that was fun. And gave me a lot of exposure, I think, to the community, like just meeting people. That was cool. Like I still have friends today that I met doing that. And also, speaking of Rails kits, basically gave me kind of a stepping stone to get there, right? Having those interactions with people, being a part of the community, having given something to the community of value, then it was easy for me to go to people and say, hey, now I've built this thing, maybe you should check it out, right? And I was already a known quantity at that point for a lot of people. And so they're like, oh, this seems like something reasonable. So it wasn't necessarily a strategy. I wasn't like planning this step by step. Oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. But it was, I really enjoyed being a part of the community, and I really enjoyed the open source aspect of giving things back. That's the reason why I built Faker. Like that was a Perl library that I had loved from the Perl world, and I was missing it in the Ruby world. It didn't exist. And so I was like, okay, let me build this thing. And by this point we did have gems, and so that made it a little easier, but it was just giving back and doing something that I thought is cool and fun, and then sharing that.
Let's move on to talking about what you've spent the last 14 years now of your life on, Honeybadger. Can you tell us what Honeybadger is and what kind of was the genesis of the project?
Sure. Honeybadger started out as an exception monitoring service. So back in the day that it launched, we had things like Hoptoad, which became Airbrake, which a lot of people use. There's also Airbit, and which I think is still around as an open source project. And basically, it was just a way for you to plug in a gem into your app, and if an exception happened, then that would trigger a report to our API, and we would tell you that it happened, give you notification on Slack or email, whatever, and help you manage that process. Over time, Honeybadger has grown, of course. 14 years, you don't stay still, right? So
Yeah.
we always wanted Honeybadger to be a place where a developer could have everything they needed to know what the health of their app was in production. That was basically the goal. So errors, of course, is a big one, but also uptime monitoring, is a site up? Cron monitoring, are things happening in the background that should be? Like, is my billing system still billing every night, And then most recently, we've added Insights, which is a structured logging platform. So, keeping track of the health of your systems, or maybe the processes that are happening inside your app, all the things that you might want to know what's going on. And that continues to be our goal. Basically, be a place where a web developer in particular can find out what's going on with their app, how healthy it is in production, and knowing if anything's wrong. You asked about our genesis, how we got started. And I already said that there were others doing this when we got started. In particular, Airbrake was the huge one in the Ruby community. I think Sentry launched about the same time. Rollbar was also around. But Airbrake was the one that I was most familiar with because it had come from the Thoughtbot guys who were big in the Ruby community as well. And it's just, when we were happy with Airbrake to a point, we were using it at Star and I, one of the co-founders for Honeybadger. We were using it, and we had this one problem where our app had thrown an exception, and we sent the payload to Airbrake, and we went to go check it out, see what had happened, and there was no data in the UI, like just wasn't there. And so I sent an email to customer support. I'm like, hey, we reported this error, and I see it in the UI, but there's no detailed information. Can you tell me what happened there? And the response I got back was almost literally what I sent them. It's like, yep, there's no data in the UI. I'm like, cool. Well, that was immensely unhelpful. And so I turned to Star, and I'm like, all right, you know what? We deserve better than that. And other developers deserve better than that. We can build this product, and we can do it better, and we can give better customer service than that. Like, it felt like a low bar, really. And what had happened was, like, over time, Airbrake had been sold from the original developers, and now is being run by a private equity firm, right? So they just didn't really care. Like, as long as the check's cashed, right? Yeah. And I didn't know that at the time, but that's what was going on, and that's what I was seeing from the outside. So anyway, like, we felt like, hey, we should have a tool that's better for what, it should work, right? It should show me the detail when I want to see it. But B, if there's a problem, like it doesn't work as expected, then at least, I should be able to get some good help. And we figured, as developers, we could provide an awesome product and an awesome service to other developers like us. So that's how we got started. And I think that resonated with people. I think a lot of people were kind of frustrated with where Airbrake was at the time. And plus we'd had this history with the Ruby community. Like, it had been a few years at that point that I'd been doing, the plugin directory and Rails kits and so on. And so it's pretty easy, like, to send out emails like, hey, I'm working on this thing now, come check it out, And so we had a bunch of friends and family signing up from day one. But it was great. And eventually I did learn why that AR detail page probably didn't show up. Having run the ops side of Honeybadger for as long as I have, I can see, oh yeah, it could have been this or could have been that, because we've had the same experiences ourselves.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a really hard service to operate. It's sort of Interesting. So you launched around the same time that like Century and a bunch of other services in this space did. So not only did you launch at a time when like other companies were like taking that market, but you were also bootstrapped.
Right.
And you know, 2010s, definitely there was a lot of VC money flowing around. Um, you know, maybe not quite as much as there is today in AI, but like there was, you know, it was pretty flush. And so you're competing with these folks who take on large amounts of VC and like a relatively crowded market at the moment when, you know, the web and the industry is like really maturing and things like exception handling becoming more important than ever. How did you navigate that? How did you stay competitive? And how did you make the bootstrapping successful?
Yeah, that's we could talk for a long time about that one. So Star and I, when we started Honeybadger, we wanted to start a business. Well, we've been talking for a long time about a business that we could start. We had plenty of ideas and just nothing that felt quite right. And so Honeybadger was one of the ideas. And when we landed on it, we're like, yeah, we should do that. And it worked out. But as we were going through all these ideas, what our goal was to have a business that would sustain us and our families, and that we would enjoy running, and just be fun to do, right? And that we could do our way. Like being in control was huge for us at the time. And so that's why we didn't even consider the idea of taking on any investment capital. Like before we launched, we didn't have any contacts in that kind of industry. We wouldn't even know how to do it if we wanted to. But we really wanted the ownership and the control. That was big for us. I think it might have been Jason Cohen that has that old blog post about, do you want to be rich or do you want to be the king? We wanted to be the king, right? We wanted just to have this project that was a good, sustainable lifestyle business. That was the thing. And so we launched it that way, and we had a little bit of startup capital from our own savings accounts. Josh joined us shortly after we got started and did the same. So we pulled our resources and just, made it happen, duct tape and baling wire. And like you said, VC money was sloshing around at the time, especially I think 2013, 2014, after we had gotten started, had some traction happening. We definitely got plenty of calls. I think our desire to really be in control was probably the main thing that kept us from going down that path. But also, again, we didn't have experience in that industry, and so we felt a little nervous about the idea of diving into something we didn't understand. And I honestly did not understand at the time how you could project that, well, you're going to invest X amount of dollars because the business is, allegedly worth X times whatever amount of dollars. And I couldn't wrap my head around that math. And it just felt like a shell game to me, honestly. It felt like investor A shows up at a certain time so that they can sell off their stuff to investor B, who then sells it off to investor C, and then some magic happens and you get acquired and everybody's happy. And I was like, well, I don't understand how that works, right? And every time I asked, I never got a straight answer, right? And so I was like, okay, I was just too scared, like, to go down that path. I'm like, I know how it works to have a customer who pays you and you make more than you spend. I get that, like, and so that's the path I went down, right? So has that been the best choice? Well, it's been a pretty good life. I mean, 14 years, we're doing fine. We're happy. I get paid well to do what I love to do every day. So that's success, right? That's living the dream. Could it have been fun the other way? Sure, I guess, maybe. And you can't prove a negative, right? You can't prove the contra. But I mean, there are times when we've regretted the decision because, like, hey, we've had times where we just didn't have the resources that we wanted to build the things that we wanted. But that it comes with every decision, right? There's always going to be trade-offs. There's going to be opportunities lost, but opportunities gained as well. So I think it's worked out.
Yeah, at one point you had to go back to consulting as well, right? It wasn't just like a immediate, oh, we're working on this full time.
Yeah, totally. It wasn't a rocket ship, and it was definitely a slow growth kind of thing. And we were like I said, we were working together at a job at the time. This was Honeybadger was a side project for us. This wasn't like hey, we're going to launch this and be rich. And so for a while, we kept our jobs and doing Honeybadger on the side, and it was fine. But it got to a point where it's an operationally heavy business. There's a lot of data coming in. There's servers having to be, babysat and all this kind of stuff. And it just eventually got to the point where we were doing enough work and interrupting us enough that we just couldn't honestly say, okay, we can work this day job and have Honeybadger happening on the side. There's just too much of a distraction. We wanted to focus on Honeybadger more. The one thing I told Star when we started, I said, I do not want to go back to consulting. Whatever we do, I want to make sure that we have enough revenue on the side so we can just smoothly switch on over. And STAR's one requirement to me was I don't want to be in anyone's critical path. I don't want it to be a high stress business. And neither one of those came to be. We had to go back to consulting and we had a high stress critical path business. So we weren't too great on that. But yeah, that transition wasn't great. It wasn't ideal, but it worked out. Like I think we spent, I want to say 12 to 18 months of post revenue, but pre enough revenue to pay ourselves a full-time salary. So 12 to 18 months of having to do some consulting to make up the difference. And that worked out fine. Definitely better than having a day job because, when you're consulting, you can partition your time. You're not 100% committed to one employer, right? They know it's a transactional kind of thing. So it worked out. And also gave us some great client projects to test Honeybadger some more, right? So that was kind of a virtuous cycle too.
Maybe let's start digging in and talking a little bit more about some of the technical aspects of the product. One of the things that I've found pretty fun and I think is like kind of interesting in the category of the space because I see like people taking like different stabs at it. So Honeybadger has its own like query language like called BadgerQL for insights. So what sort of led you down the path of developing that query language versus doing something else, using SDK or something else?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I have to admit that doing the query language was not my idea, and I was in fact pretty opposed to the idea. So doing BadgerQL was Kevin's idea, and Insights is really his baby. He had experience with Splunk at a previous employer. Splunk is a logging tool that a lot of large enterprises use, and it has its own query language, and he really liked it. And so he's like, well, if we're going to build this kind of thing, we should definitely have a language go with it. And we went round and round for a while. But obviously, Kevin won that argument, which was great. I think I love it now. But the thing that's, I think, really beneficial is that you have an abstract syntax tree, right? If you build your own language, now you can manipulate it, do all kinds of things, right? You can parse it, you can re-inject things into it, re-render it. The alternative was to just go with SQL. And that was like my argument. It's like, hey, everybody knows SQL, like there's no learning curve, blah, blah. But now you're locked in, right? Now you can only do what SQL does until you decide, oh, well, we want to have this extension or that extension. And now it's not SQL anymore, right? So now there's a learning curve, right? So now you're kind of back to where you started. So yeah, you can see how like this argument developed over time internally at Honeybadger. And we eventually figured out like, hey, it's actually most flexible for us if we do this. And I mean, to be honest, one of the things I love about it is that it's filtered. It's like a pipe, right? So it's like a functional thing. So if you've ever written any Elixir, like you're very comfortable with this idea of like you have these fields and you filter them through these functions, and that just kind of clicked with my dev brain. And so yeah, I became quite fond of it, and now I love it. Like I get it, but still we deal like I do demos with people, and they're like, why BadgerQL? Why not just SQL? And so I have to like explain periodically, like why we went this path. And every time I start to get the nods and people start to understand. And yeah, but it's a choice, right? And not everyone's going to love that choice. But it's been fun.
So there are a lot of different things that you could build for error tracking. There's many different frameworks, many different languages. How did you guys choose to prioritize stuff? And like, is there anything like left on the board where you're like, I wish we had that and that would make our service that much better?
Man, if you could see our issue backlog in GitHub, it's amazing how much we want to build and haven't had a chance to build yet. From the earliest starting of the project, it was, what do we want in this kind of tool? And after that, what do we think other developers like us will want in this kind of tool? And that has guided our product development, has guided our what we now call a product-led growth strategy, right? It's really about like, do we think this feature or idea or whatever is going to be valuable to a web developer who is in their project, deep in their editor every day, writing code, trying to support their product in production. Like we did not want Honeybadger to be a place that you have, or a tab that you have open all day, every day. And you're in there doing analytics and reports and blah, 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 blah. No, we wanted to support a workflow where you're a developer, you're writing code, and you get this alert in Slack that says, hey, something broke. and you go find out from that link, you go straight to Honeybadger and you say, hey, what broke and how can I fix it? You find where it happened, you see the code, you go right to your editor, go fix it, and then you're on with your day. You don't look at Honeybadger again until something else breaks, right? That was like our ideal, and that's the way we designed it. And that's also one answer to the question of, well, how do you differentiate from some of the other products? Like some of the other products are about having the analytics and being in the tool and that sort of thing. And that's fine. It clicks with some people, and it's just not what we wanted. So I think for us, the overarching question always is, what is most valuable to that web developer who is supporting their app in production? So we don't target like the team of developers that has the team of ops people where they just throw it over the wall and they never worry about it ever again. We're really all about like that small team or that really invested team that's monitoring their app, that is concerned about how their customers are experiencing their app. And so, little things like we provide a link to your own user admin interface if you include a user ID in your error report context, right? That's great, because now you know exactly who had the issue and you can respond to them quickly and let them know it's fixed. To bigger things like the insights, where it's like, where we realize, you know what, you're losing a lot of information if you don't have these logs or these other events along with the errors that are happening in application, right? So we should probably provide that, right? So that's really our North Star. Like what would help a developer in their day-to-day building their apps to better support their customers.
Has AI like changed that product thinking at all, or like how you view what the product can and should do?
Definitely. Like we haven't settled on any solution to that yet. Like there's no AI, sparkles icon in the product yet. I don't know if there ever will be, but we have tried to do things that will help developers. Like I'm a big fan of Claude. I use Claude Code like all the time, every day, and having a markdown export of an error, for example, so that it has the backtrace and it has the context. Like that's why we have a button in our UI to give you that to your clipboard, right? So you can just paste it right into Claude. So definitely it has impacted like some of the design decisions we've made and some of the workflows that we're thinking about. And it has definitely impacted our wish list for what we want to do in the future. Like just this morning, I was thinking like, what's the ideal experience with AI and Honeybadger? Is it something like I log in and I'm like, hey, what's going wrong with my app today? And then that's the question that I type into a box, right? Do we want to have like a chat interface, and then it goes through and crawls my data and surfaces like the most frequent or the most user impacting, or, these are kind of big, hairy questions. And this is why we don't have that sparkles button yet, because we haven't quite figured it out. But we figure if we can at least give you the data that we have, all that context, in an easy, consumable way for your LLM to help you, whether it be Copilot or Codex or Claude. And so we built an MCP server, right, that you can plug into your IDE, and you can say, hey, give me the info on error number, blah, 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 or give me the last 5 errors that happened in project X, right? You can have that kind of conversation in your IDE, where I think it makes a whole lot of sense. And then we're still trying to figure out what does that look like in the application itself, if we ever do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of applications are trying to figure that out. I also wonder from the other side, though, like, so, you're building a product around observability and error handling, giving developers more insights to their applications. But there's this big change in how we're building applications, where more and more people are using AI tools to like write them. And I kind of am curious if like there's like something there, like getting earlier in the pipeline in the development process is like hooking into some of the, writing Claude Code hooks to like give you analytics about like AI usage, or to, I don't know, track prompts or something. I don't know. It feels like there's something there that's like very, it's very nascent, but like seems like there's something interesting there.
Right, totally. And there are, I'm not very familiar with them, but there are, AI observability solutions out there now, right? That are specific towards monitoring your AI usage in your app. And since we don't have AI in our app, I haven't looked at them very closely, but yeah, it does feel like there's some room there. Like, I don't know if it's a blue ocean. I don't know if you're familiar with the Blue Ocean, Red Ocean strategy book. I don't know if it's a blue ocean, like there's this huge wide opportunity there, or if it's going to become this very niche kind of observability thing that gets rolled into other platforms. Because as we've seen over the past 14 years, a lot of the standalone tools get rolled up into bigger platforms to become like this mega platform. which has, its good points and bad points. So I don't know. It's a long way of saying like, yeah, I think there's something there, but I too don't know what that something is yet.
I kind of want to move on a little bit and talk about one of your new projects that you're working on. And it's so funny because I feel like we just had a conversation on the podcast and recent episodes about like somebody wanting something like this. But so you're working on a project called Breakwater. And if I'm understanding correctly, it's like a Docker image hub where people can like basically like sell the images, so you pay when you pull. Maybe you can contextualize and explain it a little bit better.
Yeah, so the motivation came, again, scratching my own itch, just like Honeybadger, where here I am at Honeybadger, and I have customers who want to have Honeybadger running on-prem in their own data centers or in their own AWS accounts. And so we need to deliver to them a bunch of our Docker containers, right? The app and the search engine, and we have, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, so whatever, Docker different images that make up our service. And how do I deliver them to my customer in a way that my customer has a license for a year? Let's say like he purchases Honeybadger, self-hosted license, and now he gets access to these Docker containers. How does that happen? Because right now, all of my images are sitting in Amazon ECR, right? And I'm not necessarily going to give my customer access to my ECR. That doesn't feel quite right. And so, I was thinking about this over the past few months, and I was like looking at what was out there. And there are solutions like Key and some others that are JFrog. They're very enterprisey focused and don't feel all that fun, really. And then there's, you could host your own Docker registry. Okay, well, now I got to supply like authentication, and how do I manage that? And handing out credentials. And then there's like Harbor, which is probably the closest, which is a Docker registry that has an authentication layer on top. But it's not really meant to be like a salesy kind of thing. It's more of you have, your internal customers, or you have known entities, right? And you're handing out robot accounts is what they call them. So anyway, all this is floating around in my head, and I was thinking, well, I could just install Harbor, like just deploy that, and that works. And it just felt like a project, I was like, I don't really want to do that. It's boring. And so then I thought, well, if this is an annoyance for me, and obviously there's somebody else having this problem too, right? And so if I built a product that did that, then, that could be interesting, right? And it gave me an excuse really to use Claude a bit more too. I really wanted a greenfield project where I could play with Claude Code, because this was over the Christmas holiday, and they had done that thing where you get extra credit because they had, whatever reasons. And so I'm like diving into Claude Code for reals for the first time, like all day kind of programming sessions. So anyway, I'm like, okay, let me build this project into a product over the weekend. And basically the idea is, if you're a vendor that has Docker containers that you want to, images that you want to sell, you create a license you create a product, push your things to this private registry. You create a customer record, you give them a license, and then it'll distribute the credentials to them, and they can do a pool. They can authenticate to your Docker, just like you might authenticate to GitHub's registry or to ECR or whatever. And then you can define what those licenses look like. Maybe it's a perpetual license. Maybe it's one that has just limited to a certain tag, like you just get the V1 tag, or V2 tag or whatever. Basically just make it easier for companies like us to distribute those Docker images to customers, and not have to set up their own Harbor or do that, just things that just feel like kind of annoying, right? So it's not like a huge change the world kind of project, but it was something that I really wanted to exist in the world. And so I'm like, Claude, I just want to play with it. So yeah, that's how it came to be.
Yeah, this seems like a pretty interesting idea. Like selling software is a weird thing to do. Like either it's this one huge hosted service, or it's these little things that aren't a service at all. I could really see something like this kind of coming into its own in like the age of personal apps, where it's like we can just generate our own things. And then like I could definitely see a world where people want to sell those things, and that opens up a whole can of worms that they are not at all prepared for. So like where you could just like push those things and then have people install them really easily seems pretty powerful.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And it's an interesting time, with Claude, with how easy it is to build software. Like I think 2026 is going to be pretty wild when it comes to SaaS in particular. And, we've had things like the Basecamp guys did the once thing, where you buy a Rails app for a couple $100 and you get to install it and deploy it. And there are other smaller vendors out there doing similar things where you can buy the app and just pay once or buy the Docker access. And I think it'd be helpful to have a product like Breakwater out there. Like, I mean, think about Gumroad, right? Makes it so easy to write up a book and self-publish it, and then you can sell it. Well, why not make it easy to self-publish your Docker containers? Because yeah, you build your personal app and with Claude, and you're like, hey, this is actually kind of cool. Maybe other people like this. How can I monetize this? And today there's no answer for that, right? That's easy. So hopefully Breakwater make that more easy, and we'll see.
Yeah, especially if you're like I've been building a personal app lately and like AI is in the mix a lot. And for me to make this a service for people, I have to start thinking about, okay, I have AI in there. That's going to cost me money. Now I have to think about charging them money. But if I can just sell like the program and then it's like, okay, all the costs of running this are on you, but you still pay me a little bit of money. I love that idea.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I do think that like we're going to have to start being even more creative about how we sell software, because I mean, it's always been a thing. And I think there's always been this weirdness when you're selling software to other software engineers, you know, that's kind of a strange world where, especially more in the age of open source, people expect a lot for free. But yeah, it's interesting to sort of think about selling packages and services and other distribution models. So excited to see what happens there. I kind of want to talk, I actually want to continue on this topic a little bit. So we talked a little bit about how you had bootstrapped Honeybadger. We've talked about, you know, how you've sold RailsKit, how you're thinking of Breakwater. You've had all these moments throughout your career where you've engaged with products in a way that I think a lot of engineers find traditionally challenging. It's like, how do we sell these? How do we, you know, manage this world when it seems like so many people are just like going down the VC track? Yeah, and I just like am curious, like through all of these all these different experiences, do you have like advice for people who are like kind of wanting to go down the same track? Maybe they want to bootstrap, or they're like want to sell software, or they want to, you know, take a non-traditional like VC. Like they don't want to take a VC route. They don't want to just like get a job. They want to do some sort of like software entrepreneurship. Like what is your sort of like learning and advice around the stuff you've done?
I think my biggest piece of advice would be to be patient. Realize that it's probably going to take longer than you might think. You know, it takes a while for these things to really get traction. Honeybadger took, I don't know, 18 to 24 months to be making significant money, and that's part of the bootstrapping thing. Like if we had done VC, right, we could have accelerated that, and that's kind of the bargain of what you get, one of the trade-offs that you get there. So I think for indie hackers, a lot of times we think, oh, well, I'm going to write this thing and it's going to be amazing, and other people are immediately going to see that it's amazing and it's just going to take off. And chances are it's not, right? I mean, it happens. Like you know, there are some notable stories of things that just went crazy. I think ClaudeBot, Moltbot, or whatever it's called today, OpenClaw, is one of those stories, right? But more often than not, it's going to be a slog, right? And so I think, like for me, and I don't know if this is global advice, but for me, like picking something that I'm interested in personally, like a personal problem that I think this thing just has to exist in the world. And if I make 0 sales, that's okay, because at least this thing now exists, right? For me, that keeps it healthy. Like I'm not pinning my retirement on Breakwater, right? It's just not a moonshot for me. It's like, oh, this is a cool project. But other people approach it differently, right? Some people are like, well, if it's not going to be a moonshot project, I'm not interested. Like, I don't want to spend my time on it. I've got so many days on this planet and I'm not going to waste it on things that don't matter. You know, I'm like, okay, cool. That's fine. But I think for a lot of indie hackers, we sometimes get wrapped up in this idea that, hey, I'm going to do this and magic's going to happen. And then the dollars roll in, or whatever the success metric is. And I think we often underestimate just how much work is involved on the non-product part. Like there's a whole lot to getting a product in front of people, right? The marketing, the distribution stuff, like don't sleep on that stuff, right? So just be patient. Like it takes some time and it takes some effort. But other than that, I think my advice is just have fun, right? Because I just do this as a hobby. My wife thinks it's kind of weird that my job is my hobby as well, but for me it is, and I just enjoy it, right? So if you can find something that you love doing, you know, keep doing it even if the dollars don't roll in, right?
Yeah, I was talking about hobbies with my wife yesterday too, and she's like, I need some hobbies. I'm like, yeah, I just love building things. She's like, you don't do any of that. I'm like, code. She's like, oh yeah, I guess that's a hobby.
Right.
We need more active hobbies.
So one interesting thing I found while researching you is that you do a 30-hour work week, or at least you did at one point in time. Is that still true? How do you manage that across the company, and how has it worked out?
Yeah, that's still true-ish. I like to say that's our ideal. We don't always hit that. Like sometimes it's a 40-hour week. But more often than not, we're getting pretty close to 30 hours, which I think is healthy. Like the motivating thing behind that, as I worked in my career, mostly at startups, very rarely have I been at large companies, and like even the largest I think was less than 10,000 people, right? So not a large company by most standards. But most of the companies I work for are tiny, 10 people, 100 people, 200 people, and what I found is like as a developer, as an engineering manager, having an expectation that I show up and have 8 hours of solid brain work every day just doesn't happen. It just doesn't. Like your butt can be in the seat for 8 hours, but you're really getting 4, 6, I don't know, somewhere in there, hours of really actual productive work. The rest of the time is meetings or taking a break, or your brain just can't do 8x5 every week. It just doesn't work for me. Maybe there are other people that have more stamina than I have, but I just can't do that. And so I found that my sweet spot was 6x5. Like I can do 6 hours of focused work 5 days a week, and I'm feeling pretty good. And that gives me time in the evenings to do my hobby projects where I'm building things like Breakwater, right? Or going to the gym or whatever it is. I just found like that's the focus. That's the sweet spot for my focus. And so that's why I said, let's have 30-hour weeks, because I don't think we can really expect more productive time out of employees than that. And, obviously there are weeks that are higher. There are weeks that are lower. But I think that's generally what we shoot for. And it generally works pretty well. That's kind of been of a strategy for us as far as, competing as well with like on the employment front. Like we're a small bootstrap company. We don't make the mega bucks. We don't pay the mega bucks. And so like we have to have other incentives, right? And so one of them is, hey, you've got a 4-day work week, or however you want to divide your time, because we're 100% remote. So, if you want to work 6 days a week and, whatever the math, how that works, we don't care, right? As long as the work gets done. But the 4-hour work week is an easy way to catch someone's attention. It's like, oh, I get a 3-day weekend every week. Sign me up, right? And it's great. It works out great. So I'm delighted. Yeah, we started doing it, and I love that we're doing it, and I recommend everybody do it because it's fantastic. Yeah, it's been great.
I wanted to sort of like build on that. So there's this other thing is, we started this by talking about like you were using a product, it had bad customer support. You're like, we can build a better product and we can offer better service. And there's this challenge with infrastructural products or observability products is like, mentioning not wanting to be on the critical path. You really are. You're like really necessary, right? And so if something goes wrong, your platform's the thing that's like spawning the alerts, and somebody else is like, oh, crap, we got to like deal with this fire. So obviously, like if your platform goes down or you have like any infrastructural issues, that's a really big deal too. And I'm curious, like how you balance both the customer support issues, because in some ways it applies that you need like a bigger team, or like you need someone dedicated to it, or you need something there. And, you're talking about like, well, we don't work these like long 40-hour weeks or whatever, but like on call for an observability product, I'm sure there's like something there. So yeah, I'm curious about those two different aspects of it.
Yeah, that's true. There are some trade-offs and some give and take there. So yeah, not wanting to be in the critical path, we ended up in the critical path. Like I like to say that, we're here for you when your app is having a bad day, right? And given the number of customers we have, at least one of our customers is having a bad day every day, right? And so we're always dealing with someone, their database failing or whatever bad is happening. And so we can't go down because people are relying on us to be available when they're not, right? So they can fix it, so they can be available again. And like when US East 1 goes down, like we have a pretty fun time over here, right? Dealing with that because half the internet is sending us errors, right? So early on, in the first couple of years, it was really, really tough. And that I mentioned this, like it was just too hard to keep the day job and Honeybadger at the same time. And this was the problem, like, because we would have a server all of a sudden get buried with a new customer that showed up. And like, I would have to like excuse myself from my day job and go get out my personal laptop, and get to work. Right. And it just got to the point where I couldn't do both. So the first couple of years were rough, really rough. And as we were learning, like not every team is like us, and other teams have, different kind of quality standards and that sort of thing, and different volumes. And like I said, I've worked at small businesses, and there are some really large businesses on our platform. Anyway, what I learned in those early days, great tip from a friend who had worked at Google. And he said, if you have a critical problem, something breaks that you're having to deal with, your hair's on fire, fix the problem, and then fix it so you don't have that problem ever again. And I sat with that, and I thought, yeah, that is what we need to do. And so just made hardcore about any time there was any kind of issue that caused us some sort of downtime or whatever. It's like, okay, we fix it. And now how are we never going to have that problem again? What are we going to put in place so that it doesn't happen again? And that has led to a whole bunch of automation and auto scaling configuration. Like there's a reason why we're hosted at AWS, because like we were at a colo platform, a dedicated platform, and they just couldn't give us the automation that we needed to be able to have things happen automatically to self-heal, right? And so, hey, where's the place to go in 2007, whenever that was, 20, I guess, I don't know, later than that. But anyway, what was the best place? AWS is the best place. Let's do that. And we spent a whole lot of time writing automation scripts, dealing with, plugging all the Lego bricks that AWS gives you. And today, like if something bad happens, like we get alerts, but all we have to do is like keep an eye on it, right? And it'll fix itself. And if it doesn't fix itself, if a human has to get involved, then that's a problem that we need to fix with some additional automation or some additional monitoring. And so every one of our postmortems is, okay, what happened? Now, what kind of monitoring or automation are we going to put in place to make sure that it never happens again? And after doing that for about 14 years, you get to a point where it's like, well, it just doesn't break, right? It's broken every possible way that it can break. And unless you introduce new stuff into the system, like insights, it won't break in novel ways because you fix all the ways that it can break, right? So now we tend to be pretty conservative too, but when we introduce new stuff into our stack, it's like, okay, it's got to be battle ready, right? And so that does limit our flexibility. It does actually decrease our velocity, right? Because now we can't just throw stuff out there and be like, oh, let's see if it works. It's like, no, we have to know that it's going to work and not ruin our lives. So we still provide excellent customer service. I am basically the customer service representative, so that the other team members can focus on what they want to focus on. I guess I drew the short straw, but I love it. I love chatting with our customers, and they can all email me every day, and I'll love it. But also, like we've never been fake about who we are or how big we are, and we never like projected this big 24/7. It's like, no, we're a small business. There are just 3 or 4 of us. Give us a break, right? We're going to be asleep sometimes, and so as long as we get paged. And we do have a pager rotation. So each one of us is on call for a week at a time. And we just rotate that among us so that, we use PagerDuty to wake us up if anything bad happens. That hasn't happened in years at this point. But yeah, I mean, so we're available 24/7. At least one of us is, to handle any kind of breakage. But typically most of our customers' problems are a 9 to 5 kind of problem, right? And if they're in Sweden and they submit something when it's 2 a.m. for us, they're okay waiting until 6 a.m. Again, back to I don't get a whole lot of sleep. I actually can cover a lot of hours, just myself, handling emails. But yeah, you got to find the balance, right? You can go too far either direction. But it's been pretty manageable for us, and we on the regular get good feedback from our customers. Like, I can't believe you just did that and turn that around in an hour. I got a thing the other day. All right, I have to say this because it was so awesome. So I got this customer request came in, I don't know, about 3 hours before I woke up. I saw it when I woke up, and I was like, yes, we should have that. And I totally got nerd sniped. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna build that right now. I opened up my laptop, and I'm like, okay. And so for the next, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours, I was just building it. Got it through review, got it shipped that afternoon, emailed back to the customer. I'm like, yep, that was a great idea. And we shipped it. And he wrote back and he's like, this is the best customer service I've ever had. And I'm like, that made my day, right? That's why I do what I do. I love it. I love doing stuff like that. So it's an endorphin rush and all that. But yeah, I love our customers. I love giving them great service, and I just love what I do so much. I think that it shows and it comes out in the product that we built.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. As we're getting close to wrapping up, we always like to ask our guests a future-facing question. And, for you, I think you've been in the sort of observability, monitoring, error handling space for a long time now. You've seen the tangent of a lot of different application developer processes, different frameworks coming and going, different trends in development. And now we're in a new trend, a new era. And I'm curious how you think about how the challenges that your business is going to have to solve may change going forward. It's like, is this age of AI-driven development going to really change how we think about observability and about tooling around the space, or is it you think that's going to be mostly a steady state? Yeah, just curious about that.
Yeah, so I've been in this business for 26 or so years now. I've seen a few things come down the pike, and when I'm looking at something new, I think, okay, is this like a blip, or is this a wave? Is this an interesting thing, or is this a life-changing thing? So when Rails came out, I'm like, this is a wave. This is a life-changing thing. This I need to be a part of. And so I jettisoned what I was doing and went to do the new thing. And then I saw the rise of Node.js and the JavaScript frameworks. I'm like, okay, is this a wave or is this a blip? I was like, well, I actually feel like it's pretty big, but I don't really want to be a part of that. Because I'm a big fan of Ruby. I love Ruby, and I just didn't want to get into the JavaScript world. And fortunately, that wave didn't bury us, even though we didn't focus on switch everything to JavaScript, right? This rise of AI in the past year especially, is this a blip or a wave? I think it's a tsunami. It feels to me like going from assembly to C, like going from C to a higher level language. Like going from your single server to the cloud. This feels to me like a big transition. And maybe I'm wrong, but it really feels big to me. And so the way I'm looking at it is it going to change the observability world such that Honeybadger is obsolete? Like that's what I wake up thinking about or go to bed thinking about. The verdict's out, right? Because you couldn't have predicted 2 years ago that we'd be sitting here today doing the things we can do today. Like I couldn't have predicted that. I never would have imagined that, right? So I can't say in 2 years from now that we won't be obsolete. But are people still going to be running things and still wanting to know if they're up or down and if they're healthy or not? Yes. Okay. So Jeff Bezos said, always do the things that don't change, right? People always want faster, cheaper, right? So can I build my business around things that don't change? People that still want to have some sort of visibility into their stuff? Yes. It may look a lot different than it does today. Because frankly, Honeybadger is very similar to what it was 14 years ago, right? We still plug into your app. We still process exceptions with backtraces. And for as long as there's going to be Ruby apps, there's going to be a need for something like Honeybadger, right? So is this new AI world going to change? Are we going to be writing code, air quotes, that is more just English, and we don't even worry about the code anymore because the AI has figured out a more efficient way, just like we went from assembly to C, and now we don't have to worry about assembly anymore because we've got the C. Is the AI going to be a new compiler? It could happen. Is that whatever it generates still need monitored? Yeah, we'll still need some monitoring for that, right? So it could be huge change, but I think we can ride the wave, and I think we can still get some good mileage out of Honeybadger yet. Hopefully I'm right on that. But I think developers are always going to want to build stuff. People are always going to want to have stuff be reliable. And so that means you got to watch it, right? And you got to be aware when things aren't so healthy. And we'll be there for that.
Sweet. Well, that wraps it up for our questions this week. Thanks for coming on, Ben, and taking us through your journey and through Honeybadger and all the other things you're building. So thanks for coming on.
Well, thanks for having me. It's great.
Yeah, thanks, Ben.